Welcome to the Kayla Lee Show. We're about to leave behind those old school beliefs and those low vibe limitations that lead you to exhaustion and to burnout as you grow your business. Together, we will explore how you can 2x your revenue in the next 90 days, how you can reclaim back 10 plus hours of your week, how you can rapidly create a multi-6-figure business or a 7-figure business in less than 12 months. Oh my goodness, you are going to blow your mind when you listen to this podcast episode because it's going to break through so many things that you didn't even know that you could actually tap into, that's going to amplify your experience through life and your business. And I am so fucking excited to introduce my guest that is here today, one of my besties and also one of my clients, the beautiful Amanda, who is the world's first hairdresser, counselor, and wedding pro. She has a unique gift that amplifies your business and your client relationships, but most importantly, your relationship with self, so that you can not just have an abundant life, but you get to genuinely live your most abundant and free life. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited.
Hello. Hi, Kayla. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, what a vibe. I promise. We had a conversation before we jumped on and hit the record button that this is not going to go for any longer than 30 minutes, but I can't make any promises because I know that when Amanda has the stage, I'm going to let it flow because she has got some magic, but she's got so many incredible words of wisdom. Interesting. Wedding pro wisdom that she is here to share with you that will help you to create boundaries in your business, that will help you to create your most abundant life and actually live your most abundant life, not just like an Instagram fucking slogan, genuinely live it, feel it, and experience it. And in today's podcast, Amanda's going to share with us exactly how she helps her clients to do this inside of her program, Wedding Pro Wisdom. So, can you share with us all, for everybody that needs to understand the foundations of boundaries,
Yes.
what is the purpose of them?
The purpose of boundaries is really to protect your two most precious resources, which is, of course, our time and our energy. So if we don't have any control over who's coming in or what's coming in and accessing our time and our energy, we can waste it. We can spend it on things that are misaligned with what we really want. And we can use up all our time and all our energy on things that don't get us anywhere near where we want to be and don't actually do any of the things that we want to be doing.
I resonate so much with that because I think of like my entire 11 years in business and how many years I spent a doormat and the need to people please, to make them happy and go above and beyond and all of a sudden be available for an unrealistic and unreasonable time. I remember when I had my first bubba and I had all of my regular clients that wanted to continue working in the evenings. And I was like, yeah, sure. Because I'm like so used to doing all the things for everybody else. And I was like, that's no worries.
Yeah,
Yes,
of
anything.
course.
Absolutely. And you're like, this part of you is like, I'm going to fucking stab you with my tail comb because you know in your body and your soul that it's not aligned. And you know that your heart is telling you something different, but you can't shake the fact that you're still saying fucking yes. And I feel like it took a lot for me to, you know what's quite shocking actually? It wasn't easy, it wasn't hard for me to stand up and insert my boundaries because it was for my babies. Because I heard him screaming and I heard him needing me and it could make me cry, but like, no surprise there. But like that moment, I was like, in this moment, I'm putting my clients well before my family and my babies, which is well before me. And I just had this moment of clarity where I was like, I'm done. This is the line in the sand.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that's why we get along, because we both, like so many other people in this industry, we both started out as doormats, just saying yes to everyone and, yes sir, yes sir, 3 bags full, like, what can I do to make you happy? And, people love hearing that. That's the thing. We love the response we get from people when we act like that,
yeah.
because people love having someone that'll do whatever they want and give them whatever they want. And is that not enough? I could give you more. I could do more.
Is it only supporting like 110%? I'm aiming straight for fucking 200 over here. Like that's the level that I'm
Literally,
aiming.
literally. I always say, like, my answer to every problem, I had the perfect solution to every problem, and it was like, I know, I could just do more. Like, I know, let me just handle it. Let me
You
just
know?
do even more,
Oh,
and we'll all be fine.
but it's really interesting because it actually starts to shape your beliefs when we dive a little bit
Ugh,
deeper into this work. And
absolutely.
it starts to shape your beliefs around what your expectations are of yourself to consistently overgive and people please, and your
Mm,
boundaries are not worthy. And then when it comes to instilling your boundaries, you feel like the worst person in the fucking world. You're like, I'm awful. I'm going straight to hell. This is the end of my business. I'm going to
yes.
lose my relationship with my client. Nobody's ever going to book in. And you actually start to tell yourself all these stories because it's so far from what you're so used to doing. And what I find
Yes.
interesting, which was huge for me, is that you can respectfully, with love, set your boundaries. It doesn't have
Of
to be
course.
an awful experience. But I think when it
Mhm,
becomes an awful experience, which is probably why we all go back to that moment where we were like, I did set my boundaries and look how that turned out. So you've got examples now of how, like, when you have set your boundaries and it's not turned out great.
mhm.
But in that moment, did you set your boundaries with love and compassion from an open space, or were you like tail comb stabby trying to set your boundaries? You know what I mean? Like the result's going to be a little
Yeah.
different.
Yeah,
But
yeah. And this is where I always say at the end of everything that I say in my life, and especially my program, I always remind my students, as always, with love, kindness, and respect. Because you can be very direct and very firm and very upfront in getting your point across and stating your needs with love, kindness, and respect. It doesn't have to be a bitchy thing where you've
mhm.
shut someone down and you've cut them off
Yes,
and you've put a wall up and you've turned into, you
the
know,
ice queen.
everyone's worst nightmare. You don't have to go around, Gordon Ramsaying people. You can have love, kindness, and respect and still
Mm,
have boundaries like a motherfucker. Like, you can still be
yeah,
so firm and true and strong to yourself and your boundaries and not have ever yelled or sworn or
yeah.
upset anyone. And the thing is, if you get really good at enforcing your boundaries, not to say people don't know you're setting them, that people don't mind. People just
Yes.
accept because they go, "Oh, no, well, she doesn't work on that time," or, "Oh,
Mhm,
no, she doesn't do that service anymore." It just becomes a matter of fact. It's not a
mhm.
personal attack on them. If you get really good at honing your skills at setting them and upholding them, people will people will respect you for it, and they will expect it from you because they'll think, oh, even if they do ask for something that's a bit over and above, they kind of know, oh, she's not really going to bend on this, but I'll give it a go. And then when you don't bend, they go, oh, worth a try. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well,
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
I couldn't agree more. And it's like I literally had this experience just 2 days ago where my cousin,
yeah.
bless her heart, if she's listening to the podcast, love you.
Hi, Kayla's
Hey,
cousin. Shout out.
happy birthday. She literally messaged me. I'm about to get in the car. And she's like, could you bring your scissors? And I'm like, I haven't cut hair for like 8 years now.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, not only do I not
I
have
don't have
them,
scissors on me.
I'm
Mm,
like, kitchen sink scissors are going to give you more split ends. And the answer is no. Love you, but no. And I don't even have scissors. But still, I'm like, the old me, pre boundaries or pre, like, I would have felt so guilty. I honestly would have driven to the shop to purchase some more scissors to cut her hair. That's the level of like going above and beyond, like I don't want
yeah,
to let you
yeah,
down. And so
yeah, of course.
what do I need to do to not allow that to happen?
Exactly, exactly.
She's
I
fine.
know, I'll just do more. That's the answer. I'll solve your problem by doing even more on my
More.
part.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
And that I feel like even when I reflect on my own journey, I feel like it starts to shape this belief that you have to work really hard to get results, or
Yeah.
you have to give to receive.
Mm,
But it actually doesn't have to be that way. But it's still something that I'm working on to like relieve myself of, because it
hmm.
is like the harder you work, the more you receive. Or it's like in that same aspect when it comes to boundaries and overgiving and people pleasing, it's like the more I people please, the more I can receive. Like it's like
Yeah.
old
Yeah,
school.
absolutely.
But yeah, I love that.
Absolutely.
So, could you share what are the risks around not having boundaries? Like, what shows up for you, for your clients
Yeah.
in your program? Like, what, yeah, share more on that.
Okay, so if you don't have any boundaries, which I never used to, and I know you never used to, Kayla, from our our past experiences, um, yeah, without boundaries, you really are at the mercy of the wants and needs of others. So without boundaries, you're going to end up heading down a path of somewhere that isn't aligned for you.
Mm.
So um, basically, having boundaries makes sure that you don't end up in a business that you don't want to work in and a life that you don't want to be in. So I'm sure we've all looked around and kind of thought, we've been in a situation where we've looked around and thought, how did I get here? You know, like, what am I doing here? And you look around and you think,
This is an
am I like,
abomination.
yeah, honestly, what am I doing? And it's often those
Yeah.
situations where you're there, but when you woke up that morning, you didn't want to go and you were like,
Mm.
oh, I wish they'd cancel. I wish I could cancel, but
Yes.
I've left it too late. I wish. Like, and then you go and you get there and it's like that, oh, like you just,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yes.
It's so that we don't end up in situations like that. So our boundaries, and I always talk about boundaries as being more of a filter than a shield. So that's something that I go on about in my
Ooh,
program a lot is
I love
to
that.
use a filter, not a shield.
Like it's not a
Yeah,
protection, it's like a given. Like a
exactly. It's not a
yeah.
wall. It's not a
Yeah.
closed off, I
Mm,
don't do this, I don't do that. You're not allowed to do this and you're not allowed to do that and don't talk to me.
mm.
It's a way of letting things flow in and out without having to cut anyone off and, slam a door shut. It's letting things
Yeah.
letting the things that are helpful and aligned flow in, and it's keeping some space around us. Yeah, keeping some space between us and the things that aren't aligned for us so that they don't come in too close and disturb our
Yeah.
our lives and our business and our peace.
That's really interesting because
Yeah.
when you're like explaining that, that for me feels like I'm like I can see where there's been moments in my life where
You can feel it.
I'm a solid like fucking iron shield in front of
And
me
there's
on
times
all
when you have to
angles.
be. There are
And
times when you do need a shield and you have to shield yourself or your family or
mm,
your business from something that really is harmful or,
mm,
dangerous. But
mhm.
in our day-to-day life, if we can situations where it's appropriate to not need an actual shield, if we can try and use a filter and kind
Mm,
of, because we don't want to be closed off. We don't want to be that cold hard bitch that
mhm,
everyone's afraid to approach and everyone's scared of and no one can ever really get close
oh,
to or feel,
yeah,
we want people to feel our warmth and feel our energy.
yeah. That
So we
makes
don't
me
want to
sad
close
because like
ourselves off.
I feel like I can see experiences through my whole life where there's been people that have been like that, where, like, let's just say my version of a boundary or a shield or a
Yes.
protection is still
Yeah.
like a fucking sunshine.
I
Like,
know.
I'm like,
It's still
I'm real
it's
hard
a
right now.
sunbeam.
Yeah. But there are people that you can't even, you can feel it in their energetic field. Like I can feel it where they are closed off. It's like nothing is penetrating out, which tells me that nothing's penetrating in,
Yes.
and they're actually
Yeah.
depleting themselves of receiving that love that they could
Yeah.
also be giving through the
Yeah.
filter of boundaries. So I'm like,
Absolutely.
that makes me sad. I'm
It
like, this
does.
is why you are here.
It's like that line out of the movie Willy Wonka. It's one of my favorite lines, and I think about it all the time. It's like nobody ever goes in and nobody ever comes out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's
Yes.
like light as a feather, stiff as a board. Like we've all
Mm,
met those people where it's
yeah.
like they don't have any personality, they don't have any warmth, they don't have any, for whatever reason, they've got that shield up so
Mm.
hard.
Oh,
We'll never get to really know them, and they'll never get to really know us.
yeah.
So I don't want to be like that. And that's why I
Mm.
want to have those boundaries in place, which, I mean, boundaries can be as firm or as flexible or as flimsy as you like. You will have certain people in your life where you've got to be really firm. So you'll have
Mm.
clients or you'll have
Yeah.
family members, like you were saying, with your beautiful cousin, who I'm sure didn't mean anything by it, but,
She's just
asked
cheeky,
something
you
that
know?
felt too much, yeah, in
Yeah.
that moment. And you might be able to say, like, normally you'll have really flexible boundaries with someone, and then they'll ask too much, and you'll kind of make that boundary a little bit more firm.
Mm,
Be like, no,
yeah.
I don't do haircuts.
Like
Or,
I f 222, by the way. Love that. I love this example because there are people in your community or in your family or in your circle, in your friendships, even clients that do that. It's like no doesn't land for them the first time, the second time, the third time,
yeah,
fourth time,
yeah, yeah,
until typically, like previously, you would have lost
yeah,
your shit and stabbed a little bit with your tail comb.
yes. It's
But
like,
because
what
we're
part of no
grounded
it's like,
and
what part of
emotion,
no don't you understand?
I was like, is it the N or the O? Which part of this is not landing?
This is a full sentence. No is a
But the
full sentence.
worst, this is going to land for everybody in the audience, but I know that
Yeah,
there will be every single one of you that has come across that moment in time where you have put up your filter to set your boundary and somebody
yeah,
hasn't listened or respected your boundary, and then you've had to do it again and you're standing a little firmer in your boundary, and then it gets to a
yes.
point where you have to lie because you're like,
Well, then it gets to a
now
point where
I'm
you have to
lying.
launch an attack. No, I'm joking. You don't
What's
have to
that?
ever launch an attack. I said, then it gets to a point where you have to launch an attack. I said, no, 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 I'm joking. You never have to launch an attack. That's when you kind of, not to say too bad, so sad, but that's when you sort of go, oh, okay, well, here's what I can offer. Here's what I can do. And that's a really good way of softening people's
Mm,
ego or their anger or their sort of, how could you do this to me sort of attitude.
yeah.
Is if you then say, oh, okay, for me, I always begin with, unfortunately, that won't be possible. So like, oh, I'm not like rap that I'm not doing anything for you. I'm like, oh, unfortunately, I won't be able to do that. But here's what I can do. And
Mm,
whatever version
exactly.
of that, like if they want me to, I don't know, start earlier or work later or do more people or blah, 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 I'll give them a version of something that I can do. So you do have
Yes.
to be a little bit flexible. If your boundaries are so rigid, like nobody ever goes in, nobody ever comes
Yeah.
out, you're going to get in, I mean, not arguments, but you're going to get in confrontations with people because they'll be like, you're so inflexible. And if they're being
Mm.
so inflexible, it goes nowhere. So you
Well,
do have to have a little bit of flexibility, that give and take, so that you get a little bit your way, they get a little bit their way, and it's not always just snapshot.
and I feel like that reflects in all areas of your life and business, like relationships with your clients, with your children, with your partner, with your
Yeah,
family,
it's
with
a
your friends,
dance.
and also relationships in business. And it's like,
Yeah.
if you're showing up in life in one way, you are absolutely showing up in life in the same way in another area. So,
Hmm.
like, I feel like that example there is where you are that heart of steel with your clients. It could also be that you're like that with your family or like your friends, or like
Mm,
it's a like it could look like that. And so
yeah.
my question, or like contemplation, is
Hmm.
like, if it's showing up for you in one area, reflect on where it else might be showing up and if it's affecting your life or your business. And I mean, that's exactly why you've created your program, isn't it? Like, this is one of the
Absolutely.
elements, because
Absolutely.
it's not just about your boundaries. Your program is to really help the women inside, which, by the way, fuck yes! I know, it's like celebration, a little mini dance. Um, it's really to help both business and life, because you are helping them to understand their relationships with their clients, and boundaries is one element, and then
That's right.
relationships with yourself, boundaries is one element. And can you share more about that? Like, just dive
Okay.
right deep.
Well, boundaries is such an important starting point, because without boundaries, you are not going to be clear on your values. You're
Mm,
not going to be able to protect what's important to you, what you really value, which for most of us is our families, our loved ones, and of
yeah.
course our clients and our business. But without boundaries, you don't have any time you don't have any energy, you don't have any brain space
Mm.
to make time for what you really want to do in your life, what really aligns with your values, because you're too busy doing everything that everyone else wants, and you're too busy putting out fires that you didn't even start and have got nothing to do with you. Um, but that's why boundaries are so important up front, is because without them, you don't have time to take the aligned action and to prioritize your values
Mm.
and turn those dreams that you hold inside into something real and tangible and something that you actually live,
Mm.
because you're just going to live a life of distractions and,
It's like a
you know,
life of reaction, like I feel
exactly.
it's like it's no intentionality with it. It's like you're moving through life responding to your experiences rather than creating your experiences.
Exactly, exactly. And I did that for so long. I did that for way too many years. And I know from our
Absolutely.
conversations, you had a very similar experience.
I was
And I
like,
think
are we
for
the
people
same
that,
human?
oh my God, I know. Did we accidentally just become best friends? No, I think as well, a lot of the women that gravitate towards this industry, it's the service industry. We sit our
Mm,
client in the chair and we go, what do you want? How can I help you? How can I bring your dream to life?
yeah.
But we forget to ask ourselves, what are my dreams? What dreams do
Mm.
I want to bring to life? And when am I going to do it? When am I going to sit down
Mhm.
and start that website or
Yes.
start that podcast or
Yes.
start that business or that side hustle that's just living in the back of my mind as like a
Mhm.
distant dream for one day off in
Mhm.
the future?
I could not agree more. And like this is where the values weaves in, right? So you know we're talking about like the
Getting
values.
excited.
I know, I'm like, did
I'm
we
like, I
just
just need to
start
share.
part two of this? um, but this is so like my whole
Mm,
body is feeling this because even from my mentoring clients, let's just say as an example, that don't have boundaries around their client work and they don't have values in terms of what their needs are in business, it happens so often that they live in such a level of overwhelm and overdrive and exhaustion and burnout
yes,
and scatteredness
yes,
in their mind because they
yes,
can't ground into the action that they need to take because their energy is being pulled in all these directions. Why? Because they're
yes,
overgiving. There's no boundary or filter around like what
yeah,
their needs are. And this is one huge advice for everybody that is here. If you're running a
yeah,
business, it is not wrong for you to value your needs in business because if you're not valuing your needs in business, how can you show up and value your clients? Like,
absolutely.
how, and you can't even show,
Yeah,
if you're here in the service industry and you're wanting to provide the most incredible fucking client experience and get the
mm,
most incredible client results, then how can you give it 120% if you've only got 60% in your fucking
exactly,
battery? So, like,
exactly.
you're like, yes, yes,
100%.
yes.
But this is where, and we deep dive into this in the program, but just to, give you an idea, this is where your self-worth is
Mhm.
so important.
Mhm.
Because if you're not clear on your self-worth and you've never done any work to realize where it is and is it at a healthy level and do I need to bring it up and what do I do to bring it up? And if you're not sure on what your sort of limiting beliefs are and the things you tell yourself that, when you tell yourself you don't deserve to, you don't say to yourself, you don't deserve this. You say to yourself, oh, that's okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can do that for you. You don't say to
Mhm.
yourself, you're worthless. I don't value you. You say to yourself, just do that one more thing for her because I don't want her to be upset with me.
Yeah.
That's
It's
how it
like,
sounds in real life. We're not
yeah.
saying you're worthless.
And
We're
it's like,
saying, yeah, no problem.
and it's like this, you know how we talk about like in our mentorship, we talk about like the symptom of the problem. The
Yes,
client sees the symptom, but the problem is something else, and they obviously
that's
want a
right.
solution. So, like the
Yeah,
example of this would be is like the problem underneath is that she's not valuing her boundaries or her worth, and the symptom is showing that she's overgiving and people pleasing and doing all the
absolutely.
things. And so,
Yeah,
but the solution is still the same. So it's like
yeah,
I
yeah.
love that you touched on that because what people might think is boundaries or
There's always something
self-worth
underneath.
is like
There's
it
always something deeper. There's always a reason why when you get to the root of it, there's
underneath,
always a reason
peel them,
why.
yeah,
Exactly,
peeling back the
exactly. And
layers.
so, yeah, self-worth is so important. We talk about your confidence and we dive really deep into your values and
Mm.
how to prioritize them
Mm.
so that you
Without
know what
guilt.
your dreams are. You actually know what is important to you, and you know what you need to do to start moving in the direction of where you really want to be.
Yeah, I love that.
So that's, yeah, so in a nutshell,
It's fucking incredible.
if I could cram all that into just one little nutshell in half an hour or whatever we were up to now, that's as small as I can condense it. But there's so much
Mm,
more. There's so much
there
more.
is. There's so much more. I feel like, could you just explain, like, what would be an example of how this might show, like, not honoring your boundaries in your personal life and then not honoring your boundaries in your
Yeah,
business? What
yeah,
would be the symptom that you would see with your clients with this? Like,
yeah.
so
The
they can
symptoms,
self-identify.
the symptoms are basically burnout. You're overwhelmed, you're burnt out, you are just moving through the world with a fake smile plastered on your face. But it's like that smile where your teeth are kind of gritted underneath
Yeah.
and you got the eye twitch going and you're like, yeah, that you're kind of like your eye twitching and your jaw's clenched. So if you're sleeping with a clenched jaw every night,
Yeah,
if
I was
you're
like the
grinding your
TMJ.
teeth, yeah, hello, TMJ shoes. Not anymore though, but for my
No.
entire life, up until I started doing this kind of
Ooh.
work on myself,
Hmm.
hello, TMJ specialist. So
Oh.
that those are the dead giveaways, and we try to hide them from ourselves.
Mm.
I've got this saying that, like, my best friend knows it so well. How are you? And I'll say, and it's like it's high pitched, and it's
Yeah.
like I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm, how are you? I'm fake fine. So it's like you're
Like,
fine, but like you're so not
oh
fine.
yeah.
You're fake fine. About me, I'm fake fine. Don't ask any more questions. Nah.
Fine. And it's like it's
Yeah.
so high pitched, and we're all,
Yes, it
but
gets
it's.
high pitched. It's like
Mhm.
in Friends. I don't know.
I feel like, if we're gonna like dive deeper on that, that is a representation of like the
Yeah,
protection around you. Like if you're
yeah.
that fine all the time,
That's the shield.
that's the
Because the
shield, isn't
shield
it?
doesn't mean you're a bitch. I had a shield up for so
Yes.
many years and I
You're
was the
like
nicest fucking sweetheart person you could ever meet.
you're like
But it was a
so nice.
shield.
Yeah, I
I
know.
know,
But
but
it's
I
like
was
it's like
protecting myself
yeah,
with that fake
shield.
fine,
Yeah.
fake smile.
Hmm.
That's how it shows up.
So
But
that's like the
inside, I'm
perfect
dying.
representation of like
Yes.
how you can have the symptom of the sun and still be protecting yourself from anything coming in and anything going out. Or you could also look a little like an ice queen and still be protecting yourself, bitch, resting bitch face.
Yeah. Well, and that's the two
Um,
different scales.
that's the
That depends
different,
on your
yeah,
personality and
yeah,
some of us are fake fine and some of us have the resting bitch face, which at the end of the day, they're both kind of a shield that
yeah.
we're using to hide how tired, burnt out, overwhelmed, drained,
Mm.
just exhausted we are.
I'm going to ask one more question because I feel like this will be really cool to dive into because I know this
Of
is
course.
also underneath.
Let's go. Let's go.
So, are there elements of protection and boundary setting when it comes to like experiences in your life, when it comes to like traumatic experiences, the way that you've been raised, conditioning from your family, all the things that can actually set you up for life with the worst like examples? But like, yeah, is there a link? Like, yeah, can you share more on that?
Oh, of course. Absolutely. There are definitely things that we have taken on, and this is where we work on pretty early on in the program, our limiting beliefs,
Mm,
because those limiting beliefs have come from somewhere. It's
mhm.
not to be like, oh, it's all your parents' fault, or oh, it's all
Yeah.
your industry where you work's fault, or it's all social media's fault. It's like, no, we take a little piece from here and a little piece from there
Mm.
at all different stages through our life, and we lock it in, and we tell ourselves that that's how it is, and that that's how it has to be for us.
Yeah.
And we hang on to those, and we don't always consciously realize that we're holding them, and we don't always consciously realize that we've taken them on.
Mm.
And then it shows up later in different ways in our life
Yeah.
when, say, we go to start a business, or we have a really difficult interaction with the client, or we have, problems in our personal relationships or financial problems. And it starts to show up then, and you think,
Mm,
why can't I move past this? It's like there's a blockage or an
yeah.
obstacle or some reason that you're like,
Mm.
well,
Or
I'm
it
doing all
keeps
these
happening,
things.
like the loop, when it just keeps happening,
Yes,
but you're in like different, like for example,
exactly.
like you're in one relationship and the same thing happens, and you have another relationship, it's the same thing happening, and it's like another relationship and the same
Yep.
thing happening, and we're like,
Yeah.
we're seeing a we're seeing a
Yes.
common denominator.
Yes,
But it,
absolutely.
yeah, I love that because I feel like bringing awareness to our beliefs can really shape our reality once we understand more about
100%.
ourselves.
Absolutely 100%.
And I'm
And
like,
it's not
how
about like,
powerful is that? Like,
honestly though, and it doesn't have to be like, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not like, tell me what happened when you were 7. I'm like, okay, so what are you coming up against in your day-to-day life, in
yeah,
your business, with your family, and your clients? What's kind of like, because there will be recurring themes that
yeah,
you may not be able to piece together, but I'm not some sort of, neurologist expert, behavioral scientist, but it's like sometimes just being someone that's either a little bit further down the path than you, or maybe has been exactly where you were a few
mhm,
years ago, or maybe went through exactly the same thing, or something very similar that you can understand and go, oh, that's that. And because I've got my counseling skills and I've been in the wedding industry and the hair industry for so long, I can see these
everything.
common themes, and
Mhm.
it's not anything to do with any of those one individual industries alone. It's women,
A collective.
and it's mothers,
Yeah.
and it's the beliefs
Oh,
that we hold about ourselves and each other
and I
that slow us
feel
down and stop us doing what we want to do.
and I feel like it's so prominent in our industry because of the industry of who we are. Like
Seems
we
to shake
are.
for a sec.
I'm like, but we are the ones that are like selfless, which is why you're in such a contradiction between like choosing your client or your kid because you're like, I feel obliged to do both. And I'm
Yes,
like stretching myself so thin. And you're like, I know my child
absolutely.
means everything, but I'm letting you
Of
down. And I know that
course.
you mean like, we're not, we all love our
Yeah,
clients, but at the end of the day, your values are that your family will always come first. I'm certain of it.
of
Do you know what I
course.
mean? But there's
Yeah.
still that element of guilt that comes up because you feel like you're letting somebody down.
Oh,
And it's because of our industry. It is
and yeah,
somewhat specific to the industry because of the type of people that are inside of the industry. You wouldn't have necessarily somebody who didn't give a shit about somebody else's happiness actually in our industry because they'd be like,
no,
even if they're cold hearted, even if they have an ice queen protection around them, they
yes.
still have this beautiful heart inside that does actually want to
Yes.
give to their clients.
Yes. It's like, who
And
hurt you?
yeah, I'm like, let's
Who
save
hurt
you.
you?
Let's cuddle you. Let's fucking cuddle it out. We're gonna fuck them up. No. It's like again the protection that I have over my clients. How many
I
times
know.
have
I
I
totally get it.
like it's the feeling of like you just don't want somebody else to go through that level of pain when there is another experience. And I
Exactly. And
just
because you've been there, you're
yes,
in that
yes.
similar mentorship position where, I mean, you're from a totally different angle of like more, your systems and your strategies and all those sorts of things. But it's the same basic premise
Hmm.
is that you've
Hmm.
been there, you've struggled without the systems and the strategies and you
Yeah.
know, having all those processes in place. And so
Hmm.
now that's what you do.
Yeah.
That's your specialty. So it's all coming. And do you see what I mean? That's a perfect example. If you look at things, you find that it all kind of just comes back to the same. You go, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Kayla's come from a completely different place, but it's
Still
basically the
coming back.
same thing. We're
It's
all
still coming back.
basically the same human.
But this is why your program is so powerful because it's not like you've just gone to uni and learnt a fucking degree and then you're like, I'm going to apply this to the hair and makeup industry or the wedding industry. You've walked the path. You've actually
I've
gone through
lived
the
it.
trenches. You've experienced everything that your clients that are inside of the program have experienced. And that's why it's like so
Yeah,
powerful because you're
yeah.
not coming from a place of like, I'm telling you this is what's wrong or this is what the
No,
problem is. You're
I'm the
like, I fucking
expert
get
and
it.
do what I say.
No, it's like
No,
I'm ground level with you and
I'm
we're gonna
eye
get through
level.
this
It's like
together.
me and you
Like,
like this.
yes, literally. It's like you and me against the world right
Yeah,
now. I got
we're like
you.
this.
Do you know what I mean? And I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
one of the greatest things about you is that that is one of your superpowers is creating that
Thank
space
you.
because, like this work is deep. And if somebody does feel like they've got a protection around them because they don't feel safe to let their guard down, having these level of conversations can be quite traumatic but triggering, but also it can feel unsafe. And for anybody who's listening, I can vouch for Amanda's fucking heart. Like, I can vouch. It's going to make me cry, which is no surprise.
I know. I'm like,
But
did we even have a conversation if both of us didn't end up crying?
I'm crying. For everybody who's not here, cannot see, there's tears down my face. I want to encourage each and every one of you to tap into a world where you feel free and
Yes.
limitless, but also have this level of ability to like love freely, love yourself freely, love your family freely, love your clients freely. And there's so much I could talk to on this, but to get to that state, it does require a little bit of deep diving into your soul and your experiences so that you can refine that work and then fucking rise like a phoenix. But Amanda is the one who will create that safe space for you. It will feel like you're sitting across the room on a lounge room chair with a coffee in your hand and you're all scrunched up having a conversation with your best mate. I know that because that is my experience with Amanda. And I have
Thank
known her for
you.
so long. And there is nothing more that I can share to this other than you need to get in the room and you need to be a part of her program because it will change your life, your family's life, and your relationship with your clients and your business. That's my love note. Is there
It's
anything?
4:44. It just hit 4:44 here in Melbourne.
Of course it did. Of course. This is the magic.
Classic.
Classic. I want to thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, my love.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing all of your words of wisdom. I'm so
Of
excited.
course. Of course.
You really do have a gift to share, and I just can't wait for it to
I,
unfold.
I I absolutely value your opinion and you saying that so much because with the gifts that you hold and that you share with the world and how vulnerable and loving you are with all of us, that really means a lot. Thank you.
Crying again, guys. She's handing me the tissues. Of course she is.
Imagine, and then you like take it like a
How good.
next podcast we'll plan some like
Oh my
magic
God.
tricks like that.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me. We're pretty magical beings. So. Oh, thank you so much for everybody who is listening. We hope that you've loved this episode. Jump into Instagram, send us a DM and let us know how much you love this conversation. And you will also have access to Amanda's Instagram, also her links to her website, her Wedding
Absolutely.
Pro Wisdom, all of the things. And we will see you in the next episode. Big love.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for joining me today, gorgeous. If you're loving this episode, it would mean the absolute world to me if you could take a screenshot, share, and tag me in all of your socials. I love seeing this podcast reach as many ears because I want to help so many women access more time, more revenue, more growth in their business without sacrifice. This is my absolute goal for this podcast. So don't forget to hit subscribe or follow and leave an epic 5-star review because for every review, you will receive free access to my Ignite Master Course, which was worth $2,991. So Ignite was a 3-hour business growth conversation to help you overcome your challenges, accelerate your business, and implement strategies that will help you to access more revenue, more time, and more growth, and help you to create the lifestyle and business of your dreams in the next 12 months. For every review, I will send you through access for Ignite Master Course. This is insanely epic. So once you've left your review, send me a DM with the word Ignite and I'll send you through your discount code so you can access Ignite for free, gorgeous. Thank you so much for joining me, and I shall see you in the next episode.